The theme of my presentation is the more things change, the more they stay the same. Sometimes, kind of, for the most part, sometimes they do actually change quite a bit. But one of those things that has only changed a little bit is this order of presentation. So when I was a TxDOT employee and we still had lab and construction engineers meeting, I was always on the agenda after this fellow named Dale Rand. And let me tell you, for folks who don't know Dale, he was the funniest person you have ever listened to give a presentation. And so I really hated going after him for a variety of reasons. But the most of which, he'd always use all my time. He'd go so long, I'd get up there and basically say, okay, concrete pavements, yay, any questions? And so I really appreciate now that one of the things that have changed is I might still be following hot mix, but Harold was very respectful and gave me my time. So thank you very much.
That's right.
All right. This is a long list. It's not a reading test. But you know, when I was looking at 100 years of developments in the pavement and material and transportation industry, I went to the National Academies and found they had a big long list of the best inventions of every decade. And one of the things I thought was really interesting was that 1910 and that 1913, the best inventions. You know, so basically a hot mix type of application that wasn't the Trinidad material, but then also the first highway paved with Portland cement not too long after that. Because of those of you who didn't grow up in the digital age might not realize that at the turn of the century in the 1900s, paving technology, that was the cutting edge, rocket science level kind of stuff. And so we saw in Harold's presentation some of the patents on the hot mix side, and then concrete, also folks were going around patenting the special ways to use and blend concrete materials. And this was one of them. It's not a TxDOT road, but it's down in San Antonio. They just celebrated their 100th anniversary in Belknap Place. And this was the high-tech granitoid patented system. And so it's kind of an interesting little concrete pavement down there. Like I said, it just got its 100-year anniversary and commemoration plaque. So I was very fortunate to know the TxDOT photo librarian, Ann Cook, and she very graciously gathered a few historical photos for me for this presentation. Hey, I just realized another thing that's going to be different not having Dale Rand here, because if Dale Rand was sitting there, I think he'd probably say, hey, Lisa, is that you? Oh no, that's a mule or a donkey or something. You know, he'd make some joke like that and I would just have to go, ha, 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 ha. That was really funny. And it usually was really funny. Okay, so again, you know, this is what a construction project in the San Angelo district looked like in the 1920s. You know, obviously they had motorized equipment, but you weren't going to get it up those types of hills and whatnot. So still quite a bit of animal, you know, powered graders and material removal equipment. And then, you know, one of those things that is never going to change is that when it comes to a paving project, oh, we are always waiting on the dirt guys, right? You know, it doesn't matter how fancy the equipment's going to be. That is, you know, the bulk of the time there on any new location project. And then one thing that also never changes is whenever there's a construction project, there must be a pickup truck in the photo, right? So this is down in my stomping ground, Cameron County. This is one of the first TxDOT concrete paving operations. And if you notice that little contraption, it's not chitty chitty bang bang excerpts. The concrete plant was actually mounted on the paver, right? So they'd come, you see the little aggregate dump truck there dumping the aggregate into the front of that plant, and then the concrete concrete came out the back, and then you had folks on a bridge finishing and texturing. So pretty snazzy operation there. And here's a photo from the Bryan District in 1922. So we were already making a few advancements. So the material delivery was coming off the side now, and there was a little chute there. So they could move the screed back and forth. The Wichita Falls District was a great early adopter of this new technology this modern technology called a concrete highway. And so there's a little publication that's free about this early foray into the concrete highway system done by Wichita County. Because remember, in 1921-22, the highway department existed really for one reason, right? That was to get the money from the federal government and, Bureau of Public Roads, et cetera, and then to distribute that to the counties. So the old THD at the time was not founded to do construction and design and inspection. And in fact, it wasn't until several years after the highway department's founding that they actually started taking maintenance of roadways. So I think it's kind of interesting, especially with a lot of the design build movements of this last decade. In a lot of ways, we went back to that original purpose of the highway department, which is really a funding mechanism. So for those folks who are as old as I am, then that kind of explains why the finance division was one of the first divisions that was founded, right? That's why they're D3, and materials and tests was D9. All right, so here's what the equipment looked like back in the 20s when they were doing all this concrete paving in the Wichita Falls area. And I thought it was really fascinating because everything's rails, like railed, right? So here's, basically a blade, knocking down the subgrade, but it's riding on rails. And then here's the paver, again, it's got a little, everything was formed back then, but even the material delivery was on little rails. So the early transportation, early highway development owes a lot of its concepts and roots to railroad. There's finishing, there's a slightly later, 1936. And when I first saw this, I thought, wow, look how well aligned all those dowel bars are. And it's like, oh, there's one that's out of skew. Well, some things never change, right? In the 30s, it was kind of interesting. There were a lot of photos where the highway department went back to brick-paved highways. And so I wonder if that was for any reason other than, wow, when you have a brick-paved highway, wow, you put a lot of people to work there. So, Depression era, I'm not sure it was a better technology, but it sure employed a lot more people. Here's a picture from a Houston CRCP in 1967, and you can see the paving equipment up here. Slightly newer one, Dallas in 1974, right? If you didn't see guys in their bell bottoms, and if you didn't see the older pickup truck, because of course it has to be a pickup truck, it'd be hard to distinguish this in a lot of ways from a modern paving project. But there have been a lot of developments. Darren mentioned most of them already, so I won't repeat. But this is not your grandfather's concrete anymore. Concrete is science. It's chemistry. You could spend a lifetime studying concrete and not know everything about it. There's some mixes, mixed design, you know, it's funny, concrete design started with a very optimized, well-graded blend. We got away from that for decades, and here the last 10, 15 years, a lot of people are moving back to that concept of a well-graded, optimized mix. There have been a lot of permeability, concrete permeability improvements. And in my presentation, I focused only on pavements, because tomorrow morning, Greg Freeby is going to talk about the history of concrete bridges. And so if you want to hear anything about concrete bridges, you definitely don't want to hear it from me, you want to hear it from Greg. So make sure to circle that on your agenda for tomorrow morning at 8:30 to hear Greg talk about concrete bridges. You know, cement is a manufactured product, and as such, here in the U.S., so about half the cement consumed in Texas is made in-state. So as such, that has given ready-mix concrete a fairly reliable cost, matching just the overall inflation more or less. Again, you know, the equipment's different. You know, you saw the auto floats, you know, texture machine, right? It's not quite the manual process that it was in the past. Here within the last year, there's a new diamond grooving approach that's being taken in Houston, this next generation, to further improve the user enjoyment of that concrete road. It's very smooth, it's very quiet. You know, design standards have changed. We're using a lot more concrete overlays here the last couple decades. Steel layout's very efficient now in CRC, not a lot of excess there. So, you know, one of the things that from an industry perspective that we haven't talked about is from the use side of the highway. So this chart, this is for the entire U.S., right? So overall, center lane miles has not increased that much since 1920. It's kind of scary. And then if you look at total lane miles, yeah, so that looks a little better. But when you see the dramatic increase in VMT, and by the way, look at these scales, VMT, what's that? Trillions. Mileage, millions, right? So if these are actually plotted on the same scale, we need, whoa, up there. And so right, the system is just not keeping up with usage. And furthermore, those vehicles are getting heavier, even in rural areas where maybe the truck ADT hasn't increased, but you know what? The truck loading has definitely increased. Let's see, so I'm getting the hook there. So basically, you know, concrete and concrete pavement, the last 100 years, durability has increased, the range of applications has definitely increased, and a lot of the key to that here in Texas is the TxDOT research program. And so similar to the comments Harold made, you know, I just would really encourage all the TxDOT folks to keep supporting, working with industry and using that research department with academia here in this great state of Texas so we can continue to be leaders in all pavement material systems.